For the next animation lesson, we're going to use Adobe Animate to create an animation of text flying around to reveal a secret message. Your secret message must be no less than 3 words long, with no more than 1 word being less than 3 letters long. For example, I am cool will not work for this project. So to get started, I'm going to go to Create New after opening Adobe Animate. Then I'm going to have either standard or HD selected. I prefer to work with HD. A frame rate set to 12, and the platform type set to ActionScript 3.0. I'm going to press Create. Remember to be patient with Adobe Animate if it starts to stall or say that it's not responding. Just don't click anywhere and let it take its time. Next, I'm going to zoom out so we can see what I'm doing. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I set my stage color. So I'm going to come over here to Properties, click on the rectangle for the background color next to the word Stage. I'm going to pick my stage color. Next, before I do anything to my layers, I'm going to take the text tool. Using the text tool, I can click and drag to create a text box. On the right, your properties will change to reflect your text tool properties. Here I can change my font. I can change the color of my text, and I can change the size. Oh, the font I picked did not have all my letters. So let me pick a better font. I don't recommend script fonts for this project, but you certainly can use them if you would like. Here I'm going to make this text box right here. I'm not happy with the size of that, so I'm going to go ahead, even though I've already finished typing, I can still change the text size. And I can even change the size of my box. So you're going to put where it is, and then I'm going to make one more text box. Type the word everything, because I want the word everything to be a different color. And now I don't know if I like this orange here, so I'm going to go ahead and change this orange to a color that doesn't quite bother my eyes so much. Let's do navy blue. Okay, so right now, all of my text is on the same layer. Okay, and what we're ultimately going to want is for every letter to be on its own layer so that we can animate it. But that means that every letter would have to be in its own text box as well. Ultimately, what we want is for it to look like this. So you can see every text box is separate with one letter inside. And if you look at my timeline down here at my layer palette, you can see that every letter is on its own layer. When we play this animation, let me loop it to the beginning, the text is going to jump around and then reveal a secret message at the end. That secret message is created through a pause in the animation that you can see happen here. Once again, I'm going to be animating with a keyframe every 5 frames. So there's a different keyframe on the 1, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, and 50. From the 50 to the 70, nothing changes, and we have a big long pause. That pause is there so that when I loop this animation over and over, like it will when we export the animated GIF at the end, I have a nice pause at the end so that my viewer can read my secret message. So what we're going to do here is actually animate the end before we do anything else. But first, I have to get my layers taken care of. So I'm going to click on my first text box using the selection tool. I'm going to right click on it, and then I'm going to select break apart. This is going to break my text box, one text box now, into 5 individual text boxes for each letter of the words art is. Then with them still selected, I'm going to right click again and select distribute to layers. This is going to distribute each text box to its own layer on the layer palette. And see, Adobe Animate is so nice, it even labeled my layers for me. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing with my text box with the word everything. I'm going to right click on the text box, go to break apart. With my letters still selected, I'm going to right click again and select distribute to layers. Now every single letter has its own text box on its own layer. Now the next thing I'm going to do is actually animate the end of my animation. Right now, all of my letters are perfectly aligned at where I want them to be for the final reveal. So what I'm going to do is replicate this part that you see on the screen here on my timeline. So to do that, I'm going to go to my keyframe, to my frame on the 50. And I'm going to select the top one for my top layer and scroll all the way down to the bottom of my timeline, hold down Shift on my keyboard, and click on the bottom frame for the number 50. So I have a single blue line on my timeline of selected frames. When I right click and go to Insert Keyframe, it will insert a keyframe for all of those layers at the same time. Next, I'm going to do the same thing on the 70. Click on the top layer on the frame underneath the 70, hold down Shift, and click on the bottom layer of the frame under the word 70. And I'm going to right click, insert keyframe. And there you go. I have my pause that's going to go at the end of my animation. It's very important that you do this before you start animating everything. Now I'm going to go to the beginning of my timeline, click on my first keyframe for my first layer. I'm going to make my timeline smaller so I can see what I'm doing. Now that I have my ending all set for my animation, it's time to start making my letters go crazy. We're going to use a new tool to stretch your letters on every single keyframe. We're going to change their size, we're going to rotate them, and we're going to stretch them up and down or side to side, and we can even stretch them diagonally. So each keyframe should look like chaos, just like this. And it's going to be a slow and patient process. So let me show you with the letter G what we'll be doing, and then that process would get repeated for every single other letter and every single other layer on my layer palette. So starting with the first keyframe, I'm going to come to my toolbar and select the Free Transform tool. This tool allows me to move my letter, rotate my letter by clicking outside one of the corners. You're looking for that spinning arrow next to your mouse. I can stretch it diagonally, or I can stretch it vertically or horizontally. For each letter, you're going to make it look weird, okay? Just play around with it, rotate it, stretch it, whatever you want to do. Then you're going to go to the next key frame, 5 frames apart, right click, insert keyframe, and you're going to change the letter again. Maybe this time I'm going to keep it in a similar location. I'm just going to spin it and make it look a little bit more normal. Now I'm going to come to another frame, 5 frames later, right click, insert keyframe. Change the letter again. Another 5 frames, right click, insert keyframe, change the letter again. We're going to repeat this process every 5 frames apart in some way, shape, or form so that this letter looks different on every single keyframe. We're going to do that all the way up through the 45. Maybe here I want it to get really wide. It's okay if it goes off the stage like that. It's going to make it look interesting. Insert keyframe. Change it some way, shape, or form. And how you want to change your letters is completely up to you. It's also up to you whatever size you want to work with. Okay, so keep in mind that everything else is not animated yet, but I should be able to play my animation and see that letter really moving around and changing, and then it should look normal like that at the end. My last step for each letter, just like the bouncing ball project, is that I'm going to select all of the frames on my timeline for that letter. I clicked on the first keyframe, held down Shift, and then clicked on the last keyframe. I'm going to right-click and create a classic tween. Nope, I'm getting yelled at, but that's okay. I'm going to press OK, and it's going to work anyway. Now when I press play, you can see that it's still a little weird with the rotating, but it does think about the in-between motion so that the letter G here is not just appearing in different spaces. When you're done with all of your letters, your timeline should look like this. The keyframe, every 5 frames apart, all of your keyframes should be in a nice, neat line straight up and down your timeline. Everything should end collectively. And you should have a pause between the 50 and the 70. As you can see here, that pause is almost 2 full seconds long, so that when we loop your animation once again, we can tell what your secret message says. And the words art is everything works for this project because art is a 3-letter word. Is only a 2-letter word, but it's the only one that's less than 3. And everything is quite a long word at 10 letters. When you're done, you're going to come up to File, Save As, and save your work as an FLA file. This will allow you to press pause on your project in between different days working on it. You should also have an FLA file for your final animation and press Save. Then, to turn it in on Schoology, you're going to come to File, Export, and choose Export Animated GIF. We're going to give it 1 second to load. Okay, so we want to make sure that this says GIF. Background is not the correct color. We're going to unclick transparency. Just change my background here. Here we go. Why is it matte? Computer is wanting to change my color, my stage color. Okay, so if your stage color doesn't look right on the preview, you can always change it here with the eyedropper color. And pick a color that you wanted. So mine was more of a gray. I'm going to work with this like gray teal here. That works. And I'm going to press save. You'll see that your file name should say .gif at the end, and the save as type should say GIF image. I'm going to press save. And that's the file that you will turn in for this assignment. If the online software is not animating your assignment, such as Schoology, that's okay. As long as it says .gif, your teacher will still be able to grade your assignment.